I know it as I bow to the divine within you. Little different, but same idea. So just to recap a little bit, we have seen in this symbol dawn the darkness, the great darkness that covered all the universe. And we have also seen that there was an attempt of the light to come through this darkness and begin creation, but it didn't happen. There was too much resistance from the nature of the earth and the consciousness that was there. But then something else happened, and we saw that this memory of ages past awakened, and it even quivered in the heart of time. But it couldn't penetrate as yet. The oblivion, total forgetfulness that succeeds the fall, the coming down, had blotted the crowded tablets of the past, and all that was destroyed, we talked about, must be rebuilt. And even old experience labored out once more. And then something else happens. There's an errant marvel that has no place to live. And it's timid, and it has a hazardous and instinctive grace. Comes from this far-off nook of heaven and persuades this inert black quietude. And in that persuasion, we see that beauty and wonder disturbed the fields of God. And now we begin. A wandering hand of pale, enchanted light that glowed along a fading moment's brink, fixed with gold panel and opalescent hinge, a gate of dreams ajar on mystery's verge. So, we have this wandering hand of pale, enchanted light, and it's actually glowing along this moment's brink that's sort of fading, but it's so beautiful. It's fixed with the gold panel and opalescent hinge. It's like a gate of dreams that is ajar on mystery's verge. And then Sri Aurobindo surprises us. He says, one lucent corner, windowing hidden things, forced the world's blind immensity to sight. Now, this windowing is an interesting word. We know what a window is. We look through a window. And so this corner that's like a window for hidden things forces this blind immensity of the world to sight. And therefore, we have this marvelous two lines. The darkness failed and slipped like a falling cloak from the reclining body of a god. Now, can we get that image in our consciousness that we have the darkness that's failing, and it's slipping just as if there's a cloak falling over our shoulders and falling to the ground. From the reclining body, and it's even a reclining body of a God. Now, it's very interesting. Then, through the pallid rift that seemed at first hardly enough for a trickle from the suns, outpoured the revelation and the flame. Oh, it's come. It's lit everything up. Pallid, something that's pallid is lacking in intensity of color or lacking in vitality also. And a rift is a gap or a split. So through this pallid rift that seemed at first nothing at all, hardly enough for a trickle. What's a trickle? Little drops, just little drops from the suns. First it seemed like that, through this pallid rift that seemed at first hardly enough for a trickle from the suns, outpoured the revelation and the flame. What has happened next? The brief perpetual sign recurred above, a glamour from the unreached transcendences, iridescent with the glory of the unseen. Now we have to go through that a little carefully. These transcendences are all above the material universe. But they're glamorous, they're beautiful. And they are even iridescent. Something that's iridescent has a play of lustrous colors like a rainbow. Iridescent with the glory of the unseen. What is happening here? A message from the unknown, immortal light, ablaze upon creation's quivering edge. Dawn built her aura of magnificent hues and buried its seed of grandeur in the hours. Well, we have seen now what has happened, and it's so powerful because this message that's coming from this unknown immortal light. Oh, did I read to you last week about light? Do you remember about light? No. So I'm going to read it again because it's so important. First, Sri Aurobindo. Light is primarily a spiritual manifestation of the divine reality. It's not light as we understand it at all. It's a spiritual manifestation of the divine reality, illuminative and creative. Material light, and here is what he says, is a subsequent representation or conversion of it into matter for the purposes of material energy. So, this next quote is from The Hour of God. It's got to be my favorite quote on light. Our sense, by its incapacity, has invented darkness. In truth, there is nothing but light. Only it is a power of light, either above or below our poor human vision's limited range. For do not imagine that light is created by the suns. The suns are only physical concentrations of light, but the splendor they concentrate for us is self-born and everywhere. He ends this with a sentence, God is everywhere. And wherever God is, there is light. Ah, there is no darkness. There is no darkness. In philosophical terms, which I don't like to use too often, but we can understand that light in the transcendence is so brilliant it would blind us. Now, as light begins to come down for manifestation, it reduces itself, but it's still light. And when it gets to a certain point, it seems like darkness, but it's still light. And when it gets into matter, we can hardly see that it's still light, and yet it is. So there is no darkness. The Chinese say, don't curse the darkness, light a candle. Mother says, and this was to my friend Dmitri von Morenschild, who lived in the ashram to the age of 100. And Mother wrote this to him, and he told me this personally. Mother wrote, and I have her handwriting and I have it framed. The light is everywhere. The force is everywhere. And the world is so small. We have to grow in consciousness so we can hold more and more light within ourselves. Sri Aurobindo says also, there is a divine light that leans over the world and is not only a far-off, incommunicable luster. It's a divine light that leans over the world. Yes.
Is it like northern light, Narad? Aurora Borealis?
No, that's just a physical manifestation of light. But it's very beautiful. I've seen it many times. Sri Aurobindo also says in his letters on yoga, the opening of the consciousness to the divine light and truth and presence is always the one important thing in the yoga. Back to Savitri. A message from the unknown immortal light, ablaze upon creation's quivering edge. We can see that creation here is in its primal state. And what happens there? Dawn comes. Usha, dawn, built her aura of magnificent hues. Sri Aurobindo says the nervous envelope is the aura. Each of us has an aura around us. Each of us. No exceptions. Was that the door? That aura can grow larger and larger as our consciousness expands. And when it's strong enough, no disease can ever enter, can never break through that aura. We have to build it. We build it through prayer, consciousness, concentration, consecration. So this extraordinary dawn has built her aura of magnificent hues and buried its seed of grandeur in the hours. Oh, why did it bury its seed of grandeur in the hours? Because it's still too powerful to come down fully to earth. And we're going to find out so many things that happen now. But that word, buried its seed of grandeur in the hours, ends with a full stop, a period. And the next sentence is a full sentence also. An instant's visitor, the Godhead shone. Oh, on life's thin border, a while the vision stood, and bent over earth's pondering forehead curve, interpreting a recondite beauty and bliss in colors hieroglyphs of mystic sense. It wrote the lines of a significant myth, telling of a greatness of spiritual dawns, a brilliant code penned with the sky for page. Wow, the sky for page. So we have to go through some things here. The vision is standing on this thin border of life, and it's bending over Earth's pondering, deeply thoughtful, seriously thoughtful, forehead curve. What's it doing? It's interpreting a recondite beauty and bliss. Recondite simply means concealed or hidden. Sometimes it also can be difficult to penetrate, not easily understood, but concealed or hidden is good. So it's pondering over this forehead curve of Earth. It's interpreting this recondite, this concealed beauty and bliss in these hieroglyphs of color. Hieroglyphs, we know what hieroglyphs, Egyptian paintings. And what does it do? It wrote the lines of a significant myth, telling of a greatness of spiritual dawns. This is the promise of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. There will be a new world. We will all be part of it. Whether it takes one birth or 10 births, doesn't matter at all. We are promised by Sri Aurobindo and Mother that we will participate and be a living part of the new world. So, this is a brilliant code that this dawn has built, with all these beautiful colors and this recondite beauty and bliss. So, almost that day. Now you see Sri Aurobindo's being very careful here. He wants us to know that this hasn't happened yet. Almost that day, the Epiphany was disclosed. The Epiphany is usually the manifestation of a deity. An epiphany. It's something that's far above our senses, common senses, but usually of its an appearance or a manifestation of something very special, usually a deity. Almost that day, the epiphany was disclosed, of which our thoughts and hopes are signal flares. Whoa, our hopes, just signal flares. A lonely splendor from the invisible goal almost was flung on the opaque inane. Now, what is this opaque? Opaque means impenetrable by light. It's opaque. Inane, something that is empty or void. The inane, the void of infinite space, it's often called the inane. But then he says, after that full stop, once more a tread perturbed the vacant vast. A tread, huh? A footstep has perturbed the vacant vast. Infinity's center, a face of rapturous calm, parted the eternal lids that open heaven. A form from far beatitudes seemed too near. Ambassadress twixt eternity and change, the omniscient goddess leaned across the breaths that wrap the fated journeyings of the stars, and saw the spaces ready for her feet. Well, this is very positive, very powerful, but there's going to be a lot more that's going to surprise us. So we find that this tread, this walk, that's perturbed, disturbed the vacant vast. So we have to remember that everything is still a vacant vast, with the light attempting to go down, with this dawn just at the edge of everything. And we have the center of infinity, which is a face of rapturous calm, parted the eternal lids that open heaven. A form from far beatitudes seemed too near. Sri Aurobindo tells us in the essays on the Gita, each form is a symbol of some divine power, vibhuti, concealed in it, and to the seeing eye, each finite carries in it its own revelation of the infinite. So everything is in the Upanishads. He says, all form is only an operation of consciousness, impressing itself with presentations of its own working. The form is the manifestation or appearance. The idea is the truth. The form is phenomenon. The idea is reality. Now, beatitude, supreme blessing, a form from far beatitudes seemed too near. Ambassadress, well, Prakriti is the ambassadress. She's the Divine Mother. So we see this ambassadress twixt. Twixt is an old English word that means it's a contraction of betwixt or between. But it means between. So if Sri Aurobindo had tried to put the word between there, he would have had one beat too many in the line. Ambassadress twixt eternity and change. 5 beats. Twixt. Between. the omniscient goddess. Omniscient, it's God, goddess. The omniscient goddess, having total knowledge of everything, leaned across the breadths that wrap the fated journeyings of the stars, and saw the spaces ready for her feet. So we heard that tread already, that it was heard, and now the divine creatrix, Prakriti, sees the spaces ready for her feet. Once she half looked behind for her veiled son, then, thoughtful, went to her immortal work. Earth felt the imperishable's passage close. The waking ear of nature heard her steps, and wideness turned to her its limitless eye, and, scattered on sealed depths, her luminous smile kindled to fire the silence of the worlds. All grew a consecration and a rite. Well, a lot to go through here. We see that the divine creatrix is also called the omniscient goddess. And she is coming down between eternity and change. Incredible, huh? Between the static oneness of eternity and the work of change. So she leans across these breadths, these great wide breadths, 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 not breaths. And those breadths wrap the fated journeyings of the stars. And then she sees the spaces ready for her feet. To touch the feet of the Divine Mother, once she half looked behind for her veiled son, because it's veiled because everything is still darkness. Then, thoughtful, went to her immortal work. And now even Earth felt the imperishable's passage close. The imperishable, capital I, meaning not subject to decay or deterioration. The waking ear of nature heard her steps, and wideness turned to her its limitless eye, and scattered on sealed depths, her luminous smile, the luminous smile of the Divine Mother, kindled to fire the silence of the worlds. All grew a consecration and a rite. I believe Tuesday night I read consecration. Consecration is a process by which one trains the consciousness to give itself to the divine completely. Oh, I remember as a young man, age 23, Mother writing to me. I write to Mother because she has turned my life upside down, and I don't know what to do. But I can't stay in the ashram because my vital nature is too wild. So I have to go back to the US. So I write to Mother, what should I do? Should I continue my studies in voice for the Metropolitan Opera, or should I learn choral conducting and build a choir? These are Mother's exact words. One or the other. Because the important thing is not so much what you do, but the spirit in which you do it. And then she ends that sentence by saying, keep living in you the spirit of consecration, and all will be all right. One quote from Mother. The infinite is the river that flows without cease. The individual is the little pond that dries up slowly in the sun. Consecration is the canal that connects the river to the pond and prevents the pond from drying up. So that's Mother's, to a young child, her answer, what consecration really means. Consecration usually has a mystical sense, but it always signifies a total giving of oneself to the divine. To consecrate oneself is to give oneself to an action. Hence, in the yogic sense, it is to give oneself to some divine work with the idea of accomplishing the divine work. So here we find that the ego is not involved at all. And as Krishna says in the essays on the Gita, we have to give up all the idea of the fruits of our action. So today I built a garden. Great. Who am I? I'm nothing. Offer all those fruits of action to the divine, and we become more and more divine. But if I feel good about everything I've done, it's simply the ego. We should not feel good or feel bad about anything. We should offer the bad and the good to the divine completely, with joy, with surrender, with self-consecration. Air was a vibrant link between earth and heaven. Now here, between could be used. Air was a vibrant link between earth and heaven. Now that is called an anapest, 3 beats in one. If any of you know music, there's very often 3 beats in one beat. Pa pa pa, pa 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 pa. Okay. And now this beautiful passage, probably where I'll end. The wide-winged hymn of a great priestly wind arose and failed upon the altar hills. The high boughs prayed in a revealing sky. Here, where our half-lit ignorance skirts the gulfs, on the dumb bosom of the ambiguous earth, here where one knows not even the step in front, and truth has her throne on the shadowy back of doubt, on this anguished and precarious field of toil, outspread beneath some large indifferent gaze, impartial witness of our joy and bale, our prostrate soil bore the awakening ray. Lot to go over here. Mm, we begin with the lines, so all grew a consecration and a rite. We see that word consecration coming up again and again. A consecration here means a sanctification of something by setting it as apart as dedicated to God. And then we see that air is this vibrant link between earth and heaven. And we know, at least yogis know, that there is this sixth sense, this sense of the ether. And this ether is the vibrant link between earth and heaven. So now, in this magnificent passage, he says, the wide-winged hymn of a great priestly wind arose and failed upon the altar hills. So we have the word hymn, we have the word priestly, we have the word altar, we have the word prayed. You see what Sri Aurobindo packs into a few lines. The wide-winged hymn of a great priestly wind arose and failed upon the altar hills. The high boughs prayed in a revealing sky. Here, where our half-lit ignorance skirts the gulfs on the dumb bosom of the ambiguous earth, dumb in Sri Aurobindo's terminology is always silent, never colloquial, stupid, or something like that. Always silent or peaceful. On the dumb bosom of the ambiguous earth. This earth is ambiguous because it's doubtful, it's uncertain. We can see that. We can see what we've done to the earth. The pollution, the destruction, the, what shall I say, the sprawl of humanity, the poverty. Everything is ambiguous here. It has to be resolved, and it can only be resolved by the supramental force. No other force has ever been able to do it. It's been tried so many times. We've had great teachers, we call them vibhuti in Indian language, who brought tremendous beauty, insight, dedication to the world. Look at Vivekananda. He opened up the whole West with his travels in America. Madhav Pandit has been in America. Udar has been in America. But not so many of the ashram people have been in America. A couple only. Now, we see that here, where one knows not even the step in front, and truth has her throne on the shadowy back of doubt. Oh, truth's throne is on the shadowy back of doubt. On this anguished and precarious field of toil, anguish, excruciating distress, suffering, anguish, precarious, subject to change, chance, or unknown conditions. And this field of toil, which is our earth, outspread beneath some large, indifferent gaze, impartial witness of our joy and bale. Bale is woe or suffering. veil, our prostrate soil, bore the awakening ray. Now, it bore the awakening ray, but did it hold it? We are going to find out about that next week. Any questions?
Does is ambiguity linked to duality? Because precarious is, right? Something
It's
like day and night. Day is precarious as night comes.
absolutely. It's always duality, and that's because in our lives, in body, life, and mind, there's only duality. When we reach the spiritual levels, it is still there somewhat, but not so predominant. The spiritual levels are the higher mind, the illumined mind, the intuitive mind, the overmind. And then there's a third level, which no one has yet touched, the supermind. We have a great journey ahead of us. Calling the adventure of consciousness and joy on the first page of Savitri. We must always see that it's an adventure of joy also, as well as consciousness. And then we can put our troubles aside. We can put our anger, hostility, hatred, dislike, all these dualities contrasted with our love and our sweetness and our kindness, put them aside and just dwell in this consciousness and joy. It's an adventure. And Sri Aurobindo tells us many times that it's not just an adventure, it's a battle. We have to battle all the negative forces in ourselves. And at my age, I still have so many of them. So you guys who are so much younger have a great opportunity for change. Now, not only that, but we have to battle the darkness of the evil beings that are on the earth. If we concentrate too much on them and not on the light, we can get into deep trouble. I know people who have died from it or committed suicide, which is, Sri Aurobindo says there is no karma that cannot be changed except utkata karma, which is the karma that follows one into the next birth. And it's usually by murder or suicide. Those two things are utkata karma. So none of us have to worry about those things. And we can go into the next life joyfully, peacefully, and gratefully and humbly. We are at the cutting edge, people. We are at the cutting edge. We are blessed. We are so blessed. We have to carry that humility and that gratitude in everything we do. In every small work we do, if we can remember the divine, that remembrance, which may at first be mechanical, will eventually take over our inner being and will repeat itself automatically. So if you call the Mother or Sri Aurobindo, and it seems to be just a routine, keep it up. One day it will no longer be a routine. It will come from the deepest part of the inner being, and the connection with the divine will be made and never broken.